it is.
Call Washington County Board of Education meeting to order. After a moment of silence, Miss Dillinger is gonna lead us in the pledge.
Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we need a motion for consideration of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Can we get one of them seconds?
I'll do second.
Dave, Hammond, second. Keith Urban, motion. Roll call vote, Jennifer.
You're gonna vote.
Here, oh, back on this.
Yep.
Fancy.
Hold 1 second.
Just hit it, it's either yes or no, Trav.
Gee, the lousy coat to the table already.
There ain't a table button on that one.
Well, there's always one. You know what that is?
I can tell.
That's asking for my old Chromebook password.
Everybody not letting me in.
Nope. We've got three. Mr.
We
Mayor.
got a very extensive system by which the board members vote on the Chromebooks, and that way they don't listen to each other vote. And it adds a level of absentee. By law, you can't vote. You can do everything but. You can discuss, question, or anything but vote. That's against the law. So if you have something you want to question tonight, by all means.
How we doing now?
Mr. Hammond and Mr. Meredith are not ready.
Still not logged in? That's okay.
One more, don't say it.
Just say it. No. That's.
What do you think about that, Keith?
Them girls love me. You gonna borrow mine? Huh? You sure? It looked good on you. See, it says David Crockett Pioneer.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah.
Follow the lead.
He probably likes red.
Yeah, you can wear it.
I don't know what that one.
They
Oh, I'll
wouldn't
take it.
care. They wouldn't
I'll
care.
give
It's
it a
all
crack.
Washington County schools. Okay.
Jacob, when you come back, bring him a Boone one, see what he says.
I'll wear it.
Bring him one that says Daniel Boone.
If I had
Oh,
one, I'd
don't
wear
worry.
it.
I don't know that
I
there
should've brought
are
one.
any. Do they have any?
Yeah, the cheerleading team was selling some.
Oh,
They got the mask and
I'll have to get out there and
Yeah.
buy
Keith, he might be able to get you one glitter.
You know, I'd like to have one half. I'd like to have one that says David Crockett on one side and Boone on the other.
That'd be
That's what
nice.
I'd like to have. If I've got the wireless thing.
When you need a shirt.
Oh, who?
Just sitting there spinning.
Oh my.
So much for technology.
How to get
You get it?
Me, yeah.
Okay.
Kick you back to it.
Mitch got his. David, you broke your Chromebook, son.
Already? Always thought it'd be me.
You gotta go to the principal's office now.
Probably was yours. It was. I was over, yeah, that's true. That's true. If you need an extra mouse, I can help you out. You've already been shuffling those.
I can't get mine to work. It ain't working.
You won't
Turn it on.
Yeah, it's on. See the red light?
Ashley booby trapped us.
She down there listening somewhere.
Thank you.
Welcome.
There it is.
Now then. Okay, consideration of the meeting agenda.
I move for the approval of the meeting agenda.
I got one question, please, after a second.
You second it?
I'll second it, and
Okay.
I want to add something if I could, please.
Okay.
I'd like to add a hiring freeze somewhere on the agenda tonight, please.
Okay,
Add that under new business.
put it under-
New business
New
or,
business.
we don't have new business on there. Oh, there it is, very bottom, my fault. Okay. We'll just leave it at that for now. Do we need to vote on that, don't we, Dr. Flannery?
Yes, sir.
You have a second?
Second.
Okay. Got a motion and a second to add a hiring freeze under new business on the agenda. Any more questions? Roll call vote, Jennifer.
we just,
Electronic vote, Jennifer.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I know.
Let's see how this one goes. And do we re-vote for this week?
Yeah, we need to vote on the motion as amended, or the agenda as amended.
Okay.
Ah, thank you, Mr. Hammond. I was looking for those.
We did just as amended.
That's what we, is that what we just did? The second time we went ahead and did it? Okay.
Mr. Irvin.
Wait on Mr. Irvin. You get it?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Now. Bear with me. So we did both.
Yep.
All right. So we're ready for Ms. Grissom.
Thank you, Chairman Day and members of the board. Give me a few seconds, I want to pass out the notebooks. You just take, pass them down. I've got some coming that way, so everybody should read.
That's it. Got it?
I got more.
She got you one anyway.
Can I have one more, please?
I got 3 more, if you just make sure Jen has one. Anybody?
Thank you.
Thank you for asking TSBA to assist you in your Director of School search. We had a total of 16 applications. We did have 17, and one gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Tucker, pulled out. So we have 16. I gave all of those applications to your chairman, and I think Jennifer has those back there. So if you want to look at any of the applications and their supporting materials, it'll be in those files. I know this is just like school. We're going to get right to the finalists, who they are, because I know you're going straight to those tabs anyway, and then we'll discuss the rest of the process after that. Is that okay, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, if you will go to your notebooks to tab 1, we had a screening committee that screened all of your applications with the criteria that the board adopted. So our job was to find 5 candidates that best met the criteria that was adopted by you all. So I think that's what we did. If you will go behind tab 1. Tab 1 is Dr. Gregory Slate. He is currently Senior Director of Secondary Schools and Administration with the Rockingham County Schools in North Carolina. He has been in that position since 2015. He's a former Executive Director of Student Services, of District Safety and Emergency Management with the Guilford County Schools in North Carolina from 2012 to 2015. He's the former Human Resource Employee Development with Guilford Schools in 2012. A former high school principal in Guilford Schools from 2009 to 2012. Former high school assistant principal in Guilford from 2007 to 2009. Former curriculum facilitator in Guilford from 2006 to 2007. Former curriculum intervention specialist in Guilford County in 2007. Former high school teacher in Lexington City Schools from 2000 to 2006. Dr. Slate has 6 years total years as a teacher, 2 as assistant principal, 3 years as principal, and 8 years central office experience. Dr. Slate's interview has been scheduled for February the 17th. You will find behind tab 1 his cover letter, resume, and his references. Tab 2. Mr. Andrew Hare. He's currently principal of Sullivan East High School and has been since 2017. He's the former supervisor of student services in Sullivan County from 2015 to 2017. Former high school principal in Washington County from 2011 to 2015. Former high school assistant principal in Washington County from 2009 to 2011. Former graduation coach in Washington County from 2008 to 2009. Former teacher in Washington County from 2000 to 2007. Former teacher at Dobyns-Bennett High School from 2007 to 2008. Former teacher at Sullivan East High School from 1999 to 2000. And he has served as a coach for basketball, golf, baseball, and football. Mr. Hare has 10 years total experience as a teacher, 2 years as an assistant principal, 8 years as a principal, and 2 years central office experience. Mr. Andrew Hare's interview is scheduled for February the 18th. All of his information is behind tab 2. The third finalist you will find behind tab 3. Dr. Kevin Woody is currently Assistant Superintendent of Roane County Schools and has been since 2012. Former elementary principal in Roane County from 2003 to 2012. Former assistant principal at the elementary school in Roane County from 1999 to 2003. Former elementary teacher in Roane County 1993 to 1999. Former high school teacher in Roane County 1984 to 1993. He's also a graduate of our TSBA TALS Prospective Superintendent's Academy. Dr. Woody has 15 years total experience as a teacher, 4 years as an assistant principal, 9 years as principal, 8 years in the central office, and 8 years as assistant superintendent. Dr. Kevin Woody. Behind tab 4 is your fourth finalist, Dr. Jared Adams. He's currently your Assistant Director of Schools for Materials and Operations and has been since 2020. Former Teacher Evaluation and Licensure and Washington Supervisor in Washington County from 2016 to 2020. Former Supervisor of Special Ed in Washington County from 2006 to 2016. Former high school teacher with Washington County from 1999 to 2000. Former high school teacher with Kingsport City Schools from 1997 to 98. Former elementary teacher in Palm Beach County from 1994 to 97. Dr. Adams has 5 years total experience as a teacher, 20 years in the central office, and 1 year as assistant superintendent. Dr. Adams' interview is February the 23rd. Fifth finalist is Dr. Jerry Boyd. He is currently the Assistant Commissioner for Standards and Materials and District Operations with the Tennessee Department of Education and has been since February of 2020. He is the former superintendent of Putnam County Schools. He was the superintendent there from 2012 to 2020. He's the former assistant superintendent and chief academic officer in Putnam County from 2009 to 2011. Former supervisor of technology and innovations for Putnam County from 2007 to 2009. Former chief innovation officer for Putnam County from 2006 to 2007. Former high school principal for Putnam County from 2000 to 2005. Former high school assistant principal for Putnam County 1997 to 2000. Former high school teacher for Morgan County and Putnam from 95 to 97. Dr. Boyd has 2 years total experience as a teacher, 3 years as assistant principal, 5 years as a principal, 14 years in the central office, 2 years as an assistant superintendent, and 8 years superintendent experience. Dr. Jerry Boyd, and his interview is on February the 24th. Mr. Chairman, that is our recommended finalist for the board.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll entertain a motion to accept the stated candidates presented by Dr. Griffin.
I'll make- Go ahead.
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay? Did y'all vote on that?
We're going to.
Okay,
Right now.
I have a question to ask after we vote.
absolutely.
Ready?
Yes, ma'am. I was afraid to say anything. She buzzed last time.
I did.
She did.
Oh, she did. So much you, Jennifer, not me.
I know. You got on me last time for rushing.
Yeah, well, it'll show up, it shows up right here too. That's a good question.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question, Dr. Griffin. This is the sample interview, the questions that we're to ask him, and I know that we're supposed to have a scale like the rate, a dimension rating scale, but if we wanted to ask our own questions, that would be something above the questions that we would like to know.
Absolutely. I just suggest that the board decide as a whole what your questions are going to be before you start the interviews.
Okay.
And then, I don't care if you use ours or you use your own, just use the same set
That's
for
what I
all
was
5
gonna say,
finalists.
they
Yes.
have to be uniform.
Yeah, you need to ask the same questions every night. So whether you use these or you come up with your own, I sent them to you last
Well,
night, or yesterday, so you
I
could look
like
at them.
these, but I'd
Yeah.
also like to ask a few others.
Absolutely. That's
We
something the
can
board will need to discuss and,
How and when do we go about that?
well, your first interview is the 17th, so do you meet again before then?
You don't have a regular meeting this morning.
We
No.
can submit questions to you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, but if, how do we, I've never done this before, obviously. How do we limit the amount of questions?
Well, and we're gonna talk about the schedule here in a few minutes. How long did you have allotted for the actual interview with the board? Do you remember?
You remember, Jennifer?
Are we having a
The
meal
actual
afterwards?
Yeah,
I mean,
I have a sample schedule in here, but I think you all discussed one.
Okay, thank you. So, interview by the school board, looks like it's from 5 to roughly 6:30.
Okay, go to page 13. Is it a lot like the one I gave you,
It
Jen?
is the one you gave me.
Okay, if you'll turn to page 13, this is the sample schedule for each of the finalists. Jason, did you all make any changes to the one on page 13, or is it
I'm lost on 13.
Jennifer?
No.
It's in
No,
your book.
it's in your
13.
binder,
Oh,
page
it's in my book.
13.
Okay.
The schedule that we recommend, I think, gives the community and your faculty and staff and everyone an opportunity to meet each of the finalists. I think that's good. And I think this schedule will give everyone an opportunity to, like the first one is with, at 10:15 with principals and central office staff. What we do, we ask each finalist to give about a 10-minute, here's who I am. And then the rest of the time, the 50 minutes, it's just 1 hour, those folks can ask questions of the finalists. And then do the same thing with your community luncheon that has the business leader. Let the finalists give about a 10-minute, here's who I am, 50 minutes for them to ask questions. Let them go back to the hotel wherever they need to relax. Do the same thing with your faculty and staff at 3:15. And then the actual interview with the board will be at 5. You'll stop for dinner at 6:30 and then start back at 7:45 if you need to. And y'all might decide that's too long. But it's a long day, especially for the finalists. But the most important part is the interview with the board. So you don't want to get so many questions you can't get through all your criteria. And guys, you also need to give you a little bit of time that sometimes the candidate will answer a question, you might want to do a follow-up. But be mindful, don't do a lot of follow-up, you won't ever get through all the questions. And so the other thing we suggest is each of you take one question and you ask, like Mary Beth, you'll always ask criterion 1. Whitney, you'll ask criterion 2 questions. So everybody gets to ask a question. But it's questions that you all have all agreed upon before you start the interview. Now back to the question of when do you decide what those questions are?
Could they, as a board, could we ask those questions at dinner during light conversation?
I think at dinner is more informal.
Okay.
I think dinner is more getting to know somebody. I think the official questions need to be done in the public meeting, in a public setting, and when you're going to eat dinner, it's just basically, hey, what do you like to do? You know, you like to hike, read, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I like I'd reference your 6:30 PM dinner description in the last sentence there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Board members,
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, you really get to know people when you, as they say, break bread with folks, and I think this is a good opportunity during dinner to get another side of a candidate than the formal interview itself. I guess, Mr. Chairman, do any of you, besides Mary Beth, have additional questions that you want to ask? You do? Raise your hand. If you do. Look at me. I'm taking over your meeting. I'm sorry.
Like it.
Okay. I don't know if you need to do it tonight. I mean, how many questions do you have to
I
add?
think we need to have
We need to
another
have
call
a meeting
meeting.
before we
Yeah.
have our first,
we
yes.
need to have our questions lined up before February 17th.
Absolutely.
So,
We need to have
any
that
time
meeting.
between now and February 16th, Mr. Chairman, we just need to meet and say, these
Well,
are where they are.
Yeah. And also on that, Jennifer's gonna send out, what we thought we'd do is just send out to every board member, let 5 of them sign up.
For
The pickup.
Yeah,
the pickup and the breakfast.
yeah.
And you know what, guys? This is not a long breakfast. This is a quick coffee, Danish, good morning, how are you? Welcome to Washington County. Don't do the interview there. It's just pick them up, make them feel welcome, and then get them to the next place.
Yeah. Well, if we take a few days and review this, then we can figure out a time to set a meeting, and then we can get back together and, because I guess my thought was, if you're gonna add, you need to take some away.
I agree, yeah.
Well, I
On the
mean,
questions,
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I don't know
Yeah.
how long you allow for a question, or what's the average time?
you need to make sure they're being answered, but I wouldn't think,
And is there a time limit to when you get to the point of, okay, we've asked enough questions?
that's right.
let's move
I mean,
on?
you'll know. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
6:30.
Yeah.
you were talking about picking up at the hotel.
Yeah.
You only got 3, I think, that you need to pick up at the hotel, correct?
Well,
Or what, do we?
it's up to you all, but before, even those that lived in the area,
Yeah.
they would have breakfast there.
Oh, well, breakfast, but you've got, okay.
Yeah.
Breakfast
So
is
we're
fine.
you would have
Yeah.
breakfast at the hotel?
Mhm.
We can't go somewhere and get breakfast?
Guys, it's not a breakfast for the entire board. Yeah,
I know,
it's
but the
just,
person that picks them up
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm
can't
with
take
you.
the
Okay,
person
I read it
somewhere and get them
as
breakfast.
board.
yeah, to me, it's just
Yeah.
one of you agree to pick somebody up, take them to get coffee and Danish and move. That was my thought. This is not a formal, all the board.
Yeah.
You all are gonna have a long day. So this is basically, one of you agreed to pick one up, candidate one, another one do candidate two. So it doesn't, you don't have to take off work. And then all of you get to have dinner with them that night.
Gotcha. The plural through, the plural.
Yeah. Might be two, But one person to pick them up is plenty if you want to take turns and,
That's what we
Yeah.
done the last
Yeah.
time.
yeah. All right, you want to move on? Just some other things. If you'll turn to page 3, we have some suggested procedures that we would like to share with the board that we do with all of our school boards when we conduct the search for you. You might want to look over those 7, and I think that you all need to agree on the procedure before you start the process of interviewing. And I don't think you need to get in the middle of interviews, decide to change the procedure. I think tonight you need to agree this is the procedure we're going to use and stick with it. So, number 1, we've referred 5 candidates to you. You've accepted those. We say no new names may be submitted by the board. We say that because interview the 5, and if for some reason the board doesn't find your superintendent out of 5, then you start all over, okay? All members of the board will interview candidates in an open meeting. Only school board members will be allowed to ask questions during the interview. Number 3, the board will use the same questions to interview each semifinalist. Each board member will ask predetermined questions. Number 4, the board will follow the same interview process and schedule for each candidate, regardless of whether the candidate is local or from out of town. At the end of the process, each board member will list but not rank his or her top 2 choices on a written, signed ballot. Only those persons interviewed would be included on the ballot. A board member may not vote for the same person twice on any ballot. I think that process works the best, that whatever meeting y'all have decided that you're going to narrow it down, each of you write down your top 2 on a piece of paper and sign it, because we can't have secret ballots. Turn it over and have the chairman read aloud, Mary Beth voted for such and such, Whitney voted for such and such. And I think that's the best process, because the one with the most, obviously, you'll start negotiating with. Sometimes you'll start negotiating and it may not work on the candidate's end, so you need to go to the next one in line. That's why we suggest you do your top 2. If you feel that the candidate receiving the most votes needs to come back for a second interview, that's up to the board. You'll do the same procedure, and then hopefully you'll have a unanimous vote on whatever candidate you choose to be your next superintendent. I know I'd want a unanimous vote if I were coming to work for you. So, Mr. Chairman, I think that you need to entertain a motion on the procedure, if you need to add, take away, whatever, to the procedures listed on page 3.
Okay,
Question, sir.
yes.
We're gonna bring back the top 2 for the second interview.
No, that's not what
No.
you said.
I know, but I thought that's what.
The candidate
was
receiving the most votes may be, you don't have to, if the board decides you want to bring back the one with the most votes, you can, you don't have to.
We had that on here to do that. We had follow-up interviews with the top 2
Okay,
for March 2nd and 3rd.
okay.
Is that all right?
So can we,
That's totally up to you all if you want to do that.
But I think what you've done is if you've got one candidate that has 8 votes and one candidate that has 1 vote, then why would you bring them both back? If the eight vote didn't want the job.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't disagree.
Yeah, I don't think you do the second interview unless the board just really needs it.
So we can leave those dates tentative? And
Yes.
if we need them, we need them. If we don't, we don't.
Yes,
And with this, we can do either or.
yes.
Is that a motion?
Yes, I'll make that a motion.
Okay, thank you.
We accept the procedure as written.
Second.
Wait a minute. Yes, Mr. Fleener.
Just so I'm clear, then 6 says the top person may come back for a second interview, but the top 2 will not. What we're saying, right? Because she said we don't want to change these procedures in the middle of and say, well, we'd like to bring the top 2. What we're saying tonight then, as far as the motion is to only bring the top vote getter in for a second interview
If needed.
if needed.
I have a question.
That's what we're saying. Yes, ma'am.
So has there ever been a board that has voted for the 2 same people and it's been, like, would it 9 and 9 for those 2 candidates since we're putting down 2?
Right, I don't have a tally of that, I don't remember.
I mean, that,
Yeah,
Well, that would be
Yeah.
you're right, that would be an issue if you
Yeah.
had,
you know,
if you got 18 votes and you've got 10 for one and 8 for another.
That would be the time to bring both of them back in and interview them
Right.
again.
That would
And
be
ask a
the
different set of
instance.
questions.
okay.
Well, I'm sure we can we not amend our rule?
yes, yes, you can, you can do whatever you want.
Well, I thought.
Did you say that would be not what we should do though, Ms. Grissom, on the board?
No,
Okay.
no, you can do whatever you choose to do. If you want to bring 2 back, you can. If you want to bring 1, that's what I mean. I think the main thing about the procedures is let's don't say, let's interview these 5, and oh, by the way, I want to add 2 more, and let's add another. Let's don't do that.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to the second interview, I think it'll be clear when you've voted what you need to do from there. So if you want to change number 6 to say, you know, something like the board will decide if candidates need to come back for a second interview. Maybe just scratch the wording of 6 and say the board will determine after the interviews have been conducted and the top 2 have been submitted if you need to bring back one of the candidates.
I'd like to amend the motion to that,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Right.
if needed.
Yeah.
If needed. We will.
Oh, she does that kind
We need a second amendment, don't we?
Second.
Second.
Who did that?
Whitney, vote on the
Who you want, is
motion as amended.
it kind of necessary?
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Go. We're doing
Yeah, hey, he's playing games up here, ain't he, Chad?
Yeah. Don't hurt your, not help it.
Hey, vote Pete.
I ain't got it. It didn't come on the screen.
I had to unfollow.
There it is.
Okay.
Jacob, you may have to help him with
Hey, it wasn't there.
It wasn't there, I was watching.
I can't help it.
Okay,
that.
now, on the motion
As amended.
as amended.
All's open. And that carries, by the way.
Oh, that's right, that lane going on.
Boy, love this thing.
You like that,
Yeah,
Chad?
boy. Wonder who come up with that.
Tammy.
Pete?
I was the one that wanted the computer.
You said you was moving to a new age.
Mr.
Yeah,
Buchanan,
I
it's
still
showing
don't
for
know what
you.
I'm doing.
Well, if I would hit those little blue buttons.
There it goes. Carries.
Very well.
Okay. All right, let's go to page 5. Before the interviews, I would suggest some bedtime reading before you do the interviews. There's some interviewing tips that you might want to read. And then especially on page 10, there are questions that you cannot ask. Please review those questions that you cannot ask of a candidate before you start the interviews, okay? And we made it a chart, a quick read, so please review pages 10 through 12 before you do the interviews.
person was the main one I wanted to ask.
And then on page 14, you may or may not want to use this form, but this form is for like the meetings with the central office, page 14, and your meetings with the luncheon, and then the teachers and faculty and staff meeting. You may want to have copies of this candidate reaction form for people to fill out, simply so you all can see how people feel about the candidates. You don't need Jen to tally these, just collect them and have them at a board meeting, and if you want to go through them, fine. But it's no formal, we're going to tally these and this group said such and such. It really is for just some information, supplementary information for the board, just to kind of see how everybody thought about each of the candidates.
I have a question. On the sample schedule for the visit at 3:15 meeting with faculty and staff, that's with teachers and school employees. But during COVID, I'm sure we can't have as many people that might want to. We can do the live streaming and will they have an opportunity to ask questions? No, they won't, right?
I don't think so. I mean, this really is not for these groups to necessarily.
Just to let them meet. Okay.
That's right. It's mainly just to meet, and
So
you
that'll
know.
have to be live streamed, won't it?
Never been live streamed before.
Well, I mean, if we're in the pandemic.
Oh, that's true.
We never had COVID before, man.
I mean, we can't have it even downstairs and have everybody that probably would want to be.
Yeah, but I think giving everybody the opportunity like you've done is a lot. And I think it's mainly to get them to meet the candidates and ask a few questions. And then, you know, unfortunately, everybody can't be there, but if you're going to live stream, they can watch. But then I'm sure the interviews are going to be live streamed. People can watch those as well, so.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you're doing a lot to provide, give people the opportunity for input. Yeah.
Tammy, do y'all do a background check?
We don't do official background checks, no. I'm sure before you employ someone you might, but I don't think you'll have an issue with any of these five.
If they're educators, they have to.
Exactly, yeah. But you never know what they'll do after I present their name. No, I'm just kidding. If there's not any other questions, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report. Thank you, board, for asking us to assist you. I wish you well with your interviews. Yes, sir.
Just one quick question. Can you give us just a little insight into your process of how you came up with the five? I mean, did you do interviews? You go through all their information? How did you guys come up with the top five?
We don't interview the candidates, but bring in folks that know, it's to that network that know people that know people. When you ask for people's references, you know it's going to be a good reference. So we check with other people on the references. Obviously, we check with their immediate supervisors and, if they're superintendents, if they will talk to some board members. So we have our network of how we check on the candidates, but we don't do interviews.
But it's not just based on paper that they submitted to you.
No. Okay,
Good.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank
Call
you
if
very
you need
much.
me.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
How many extra, I made some extra for the media, if they need to see one. I think, do you have them?
Jennifer has them.
I think I made two.
Yeah, they let me know.
One, two.
Yeah.
You want them now, Tammy?
Thank you. Any other media just you?
You got one,
I got one.
All right, we'll give that back to Jen. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Wait, hold on.
Enjoy supper.
Thank you.
Okay, director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to introduce my Monterey Jacob Jenkins, a senior at Danville High School and a member of the Student Board of Education. Not only is he a straight-A student, he's also an all-district football player. I asked Jason what school was like today, and he had an interesting statement. Do you remember what it was, or Jacob?
I think I said it's just about like how I remember it, but
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
we've not been in school 100%, Jacob, since March the 18th of your junior year. Did it feel weird at all to have all those people around you today?
I mean, kinda. Whenever we went back like 50%, it was 50, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of similar to that. It's just more people. So,
Okay.
I mean, I've gone to school all my life, so I mean, it kind of just
I get it.
once a year.
All right. Well, hopefully we can keep you there until May the 22nd when you're going to graduate. And please, by all means, if you have a comment or question at any point during the meeting, you are certainly free well to do that. A word about today's attendance. We had 7,592 students present today, 431 absent. That is down about 3.9% from the same day last year. And if we recall last year, we were just about to start hearing about that strange virus in China at this point last February, and now we know all about that strange virus. The big groups, we have 3 schools, Lamar, Sulphur Springs, and Westview are down more than 10%. Crockett's actually up 1%, strangely. So that's where we are today on attendance. This is the 106th day of school. Mr. Chairman, each year the Tennessee Department of Education sponsors the Teacher of the Year program. This program provides the opportunity to recognize outstanding teachers as well as promote recognition, respect, and appreciation for teachers throughout the state. It is now my honor to present Washington County's Teachers of the Year in the 3 recognized categories. And Mr. Chairman, I'm going to give you 3 financial documents. And if you'd like to step down front and read a couple of them that have shown up today. In Washington County, the district level Teacher of the Year for 2021-22 in the pre-K through grade 4 category is Kristen Hensley, a 3rd grade teacher at Grandview Elementary School. Kristen is a graduate from East Tennessee State and has taught 16 years.
I was smiling.
We can see your eyes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Amber, can you hear us? Amber? Okay, got a thumbs up. In the 2021-22 district level Teacher of the Year in the grade 5 through grade 8 category is Amber Bacon, a 5th grade teacher at Ridgeview Elementary School. Amber is a graduate from Milligan College and has taught for 19 years. And maybe if you'll just go stand by the screen, Mr. Chairman, we'll do it there. Which is a sign of the times. So Amber, congratulations. That's one of those things, that's a pay stub, so the money already hit the bank. So, and lastly, the district level Teacher of the Year for 2019-20 in the grade 9 through 12 category is my friend, Jody Smith, a special education teacher at Daniel Boone High School. She received her master's at East Tennessee State, and she has taught for 19 years. I don't know where those 19 years went. So, Jody?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
As we said, Mr. Chairman, schools closed last year in March, and we've been in some form of virtual the remainder of that year. All but 20 days of this school year have been virtual. We know we have a skills attainment gap of some measure, but data has been difficult to gather. I have asked Elementary Supervisor Cindy Hayes, Secondary Supervisor Ashley Keys, and Special Education Supervisor Mindy Myers to put together a brief skills gap analysis for your consideration this evening. Those ladies are on the screen now. And who's up first? Okay, it looks like Dr. Keys is going to turn off the mute. Ladies, it's all yours. Board members.
Hey, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, we're doing all available high school data, which isn't a lot. I think that we have a slight gap in math and CTE skill attainment. I met with my math teacher leaders last week, and they told me that upon review, the content is consistent for students. But most teachers were unable to teach all of their required curriculum because of reteaching. So they had to go back and reteach skills. For example, in geometry, there are 11 units. Most teachers only got through 5 units. So we do believe that we're going to see that. CTE teachers have taught content in theory, but not all students have participated in on-site learning labs. Therefore, some students have not used any of the required equipment for their chosen study. I'm getting feedback. Are you all getting feedback?
Terrible.
Yeah, sounds
Terrible.
not really good.
Can they come up here?
It seems like it's really loud.
Yeah,
Y'all object them coming up here.
I had no objection.
I don't have, ask them to come up here.
She wants us to mute that screen.
That should stop the feedback. Oh, there we go. Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Shake your heads. Okay. Yay. Okay, so just to sum up, I think we have a math skill. I think we have a CTE skill attainment skill. We are seeing gains in the fall EOC data that was released from the state for the first cycle of testing. We still have not received our makeup testing data yet, so I can't say that for sure, but I think we're going to see a gain in English for English 9 and English 10. In analyzing the fall ACT senior retake data, we did have a slight decline in the overall composite score, math score, and science reasoning score from previous years. However, that data does not show a complete picture of all of our ACTs because our juniors will be taking it in March. And I can only compare with the previous year's data, which was all of it. So it may not be a decline whenever we have the junior data. With all of this in mind, it's not required under the new state laws, but we are going to do a high school summer camp. So it's going to be hands-on, engaging in math and science with CTE connections to help close all of those existing gaps that could be there. We're also going to do a creative arts literacy camp to provide enrichment. Both high schools are building additional intervention courses into their master schedules, planning to help close these gaps next year. In conclusion, we do not have any real evidence of regression in the high school data, but we are also not seeing the gains that we would normally see before pre-COVID, or before COVID. I do believe that allowing the at-risk students in the building during virtual learning greatly helped with maintaining student progress in our most vulnerable populations. So I do believe that your all's decision to allow those at-risk groups to come in the building made a difference for our kids. Do you have any questions for me? You'll have to unmute. Okay.
Okay, all right, now we're back to mute. So first of all, I would like to kind of set the stage for all of our presentations tonight with the data and your interest in what kind of gap are we seeing with our students. There's something that you've got to remember. By this time, we've given at least 2 to 3 some type of common assessment with our students. What that means is that every student in Washington County, grades kindergarten through 8th grade, and even high school, have had the same type of assessment by grade level and across the district using the same platforms, the same vendors. And with that data in the past, we've been able to take that and make good decisions about future curriculum, future instructions, where are our strengths, where are areas that we need to improve. So this year, we've only had an opportunity to, in the K-8 world, to do one common assessment. And that common assessment was taken virtually. So you can just kind of think about a kindergarten through 8th grade taking a test virtually in their own home. So I can't believe I'm saying this as a data nerd, but we have to be careful and not make a knee-jerk reaction to the data that we see. We've got to kind of rely on what we know and what we understand at this point. And what I mean by knee-jerk reaction is if you go on a diet, and if you get on the scales every morning morning, when you step on the scales and look at that data, that is going to have an impact on your day, how you eat or how you exercise. For example, if you get on those scales and you've gained a couple of pounds, we're going to starve ourselves all day because we got to lose those few pounds and we're going to be miserable. But then if you get on the scales in the morning and you've lost a few pounds, you're going to celebrate. You're going to eat that extra cookie. You're going to have a big meal. I'm doing good. So you're never reaching your goal either way. So this is where with this data, we have to take the data that we received and kind of still keep in mind what our goal is for our kids. So we know that our kindergartners are suffering because they haven't been in the classroom. We know, common sense tells us that we have got to do some basic social emotional instruction within the classroom, just getting them used to being in the classroom. We know they're going to suffer a little bit with the reading and math. We know that, and we know that we see that gap, and the data does show that little trend. This is something that we already know. We're already going to address it. Just like first and second grade. We know they've been missing that classroom instruction. It's going to show in some of their reading. And we also know there's going to be a gap in their math. And we're seeing a slight gap in math more so than reading. We know in 3rd through 8th grade, we're definitely going to see a gap in math. Math is a subject that they need that one-on-one instruction. And that's what the data is showing, a slight gap there. And the same with the reading. So knowing all of this, we already know what our goal is, just like the analogy with the scales. You already know what you want to be. We already know where our students need to be. And that's what all of us are working for every day with summer school too, and keeping all of that in mind, is keeping our data. Our data for K through 8 is showing exactly what we already knew. The slight gaps in reading, kind of a major gap with 3rd grade. And what is our goal as a state? That by the end of 3rd grade, we want our 3rd graders to be on proficient or grade level. So we already know that. Our data is showing that. So we will continue to work for that goal. And the gap with math, we already kind of predicted, the state predicted that we would have a gap in math. So does our data reflect it? Yes, it does. So we just go with what we know, use common sense, and help prepare our teachers for the future with summer school and for next year. Thank you.
Okay, students with disabilities are represented in all the data that was just kind of described to you. But for our population, we have all kinds of data that we look at. We specifically pay close attention to what we call a skills level benchmark. We give those in the fall, winter, and the spring. Our winter benchmark is still open, the window for it. So I can't really give you an accurate picture of what that data is going to show us because not all of our kids are tested yet. What I can tell you in our department is we have compared last fall's benchmark to this fall's benchmark, and we're looking at the same groups of students. So we're really kind of looking at the impact of what March to October had. And I can tell you based on that data, we're not seeing significant skills regression. So we were very pleased about that. We have seen a slight slide for some students grades K through 4. We expect that after summer we have a little bit of a slide. But we are interested to see what the end of the winter benchmark will show us. I do think, just like Dr. Keith said, y'all's decision to let us bring in our students with disabilities have really helped offset some of the impact of the closure. And at this point, we are focusing on summer school. A typical year during summer school, there's not a lot of special education programming going on. But this year, we're working with the curriculum team to really beef up our special education support and make sure that there are intensive interventions going on in every program across the district to help further offset any kind of slide that our students may be seeing. In the interest of time, I'll go ahead and finish there. Do y'all have any questions for me?
Any questions for any of these curriculum supervisors?
No. Thank you.
Okay. Ladies, thank you so much. Appreciate your time. They have stewed over this for days.
They done well.
This very brief presentation. I guess we'll go on then. You're certainly aware that Governor Lee and the Tennessee General Assembly have allocated funds for an immediate teacher raise or perhaps a bonus. As usual, these funds come through the BEP, and as usual, when they left Nashville and got on I-40, it was 2%, but when they crossed the county line down there in Limestone, it was closer to 0.9%. Now, that's where it departs from the norm. There are some new rules attached to this. The board is restricted this time as to how the funds can be allocated. Brad, you've got some details. He has been pecking on a calculator all day today to try to get this ready for you tonight. There is some urgency to this. We have to have the money allocated by June, which seems a long way off, but you got to remember, this is money that belongs to the teachers. And if you wait a month or 2 months, well, you're holding on to their money. So I urge you to get the information you need to make a decision sooner rather than later. So Brad, if you want to come up to the microphone and talk about how the money must be allocated.
Hey, Dr. Flannery, so we've already received the 350 some odd thousand?
It's going to be a drawdown.
So we're not holding the teacher's money?
Right, but no, we don't have it in the bank over here.
All right.
But maybe I didn't explain it right. The sooner you act, the sooner we can start making adjustments to their paychecks. Maybe that's a better way. No, we're not sitting on $335,000.
Yeah, I just wondered.
Thank you for drawing me closer to the way it is.
I'll try to talk with it. So, yeah, as Dr. Flannery said, the funds will come through the BEP. It'll be an increase of the BEP. It should be starting with next month, and we'll get that over the next few BEP payments. So the amount's $338,500. And basically, that is, it's equivalent to 2% on a prorated basis. And what I mean by that is we have about 542 certified staff in our BEP formula. We really employ about 612, which is normal. Mary Ann Dursky's the financial leader for the Tennessee Department of Education.
Wait just one second, I'm sorry. And then you set out 442 in a BEP formula.
542, 612.
612.
612. That be, since I gave you that number, I'm going to pull up the BEP and just verify that.
Is that 66%?
Well, it's for the ones that are funded in the BEP formula, which we have some that are not, and that's very normal. All school systems in the state are like that, other than 2, Mary Ann had said. So we're normal for having that. So it's on a 2%, but cut down to 6 months. So that's why I say prorated basis. They're looking at January through June. So they took 2% and did include the local portion of that in fixed costs. But it's prorated down to a 6-month basis. So if you look at it on an annual basis, it's just under 1%. But it's because it's prorated. So that's what it would make sense that they did that. Now, so you are restricted by the legislature on these funds. This $338,500 absolutely has to go to certified staff, and it has to be dispersed to them by June 30th. You don't have the option as a board to use those funds for anything else. They are non-recurring funds, this bucket of money. So my recommendation, as well as from the calls I've been on, most other school systems are doing a one-time, if you want to call it a bonus or a supplemental pay. And how we will disperse that, should the board approve that, is we will take the amount that I've calculated that this funds, and we will add it to an existing paycheck. It's just an adjustment line item. That we think will help with tax implications versus doing a single standalone check. There'll probably be some more tax taken out. The amount this funds is a gross pay amount of $470 to every certified staff member in the system. Nurses are included in this per the legislature. School nurses are included. Of course, they do have a license. So this would not apply to someone that used to be a teacher that no longer has an active teaching license as well. They have to have an active license in the system.
Full-time.
No, we
You
can pay
are able to
half-time.
do a part-time, but you can prorate. You know, I think we only have one part-time teacher in the system now. Yeah. So that could be, you could decide to cut that in half. Yeah.
How does this affect their retirement?
Well, actually, there will be retirement contributions
Take it out of
made,
it.
so it goes towards their retirement as well.
And this is pre-tax.
That's gross pay, so that'd be before tax,
It's
470
before
before
tax,
tax.
right,
Yes. Yeah. And the tax rate for each employee will be a little different. It depends on how many deductions they claim.
Right.
And as to, you know, that's why you'll have a different, some will be taxed a little different than others.
Well, can we go ahead and vote on this tonight?
So,
They didn't give you all the, so
Oh,
you
I'm
may
sorry, I
want
thought
to
it
do something
was-
else.
Okay, sorry.
well, and that's the gist, but we, what you would want to do is set a hard date, like anybody employed by a certain date. Maybe you make that tonight. I mean, whatever,
January 1.
you know, so whoever's employed, because the idea is, from the state, is the teachers have had a lot harder job with COVID. School nurses, you know, they have too. So now that we're back in and the COVID's not going away, but, you know, we hope that things will start to normalize. But, so maybe you pick any you know, certified employee employed as of January 31st or February 28th.
Brad, I
whatever, but
think
we
the
need a hard
statute says they
cutoff.
have to have been employed by December the 31st.
Okay.
It's in the,
So
we
if
don't
you
tell
want
the
to
law.
use December, I didn't see your date on the card. So we could use December 31st. Any certified staff employed as of December 31st. It will take, and then we would have a payout. To make this work, we probably need 6 weeks minimum for my staff to be able to process all this. And so at minimum, we would need, we're already into February, teachers get paid on the 12th, so at minimum, we'd probably need to let April 12th check to get it out. So you could say target date April, no later than May, in case we had problems, but we don't think there'll be a problem meeting that April timeframe on this, so.
Mr. Masters had a question, Brad.
Brad, I guess and I'm very, very glad for the teachers, don't get me wrong, my only thought is, I think we need to give all of our employees that amount. And if we do, what are we talking?
So if you do, it has to come straight from another funding source. It can't come from this 338. The price tag on that, if you give all, we will call them classified employees. I'm a classified employee because I've never been a teacher. So that would come to a dollar amount of about $282,000. And that would have to come solely somewhere out of the budget. You'd have to cut it somewhere. Our budget from the fund balance with this amendment that's with the county now, you're up to over $3.9 million you're budgeting to come from your fund balance. I don't know where that breaking point would be with the county.
Have we allotted our savings to anything?
Not
yet?
all of it. You know, we did, well,
That was
it's
what,
up to you.
it was 2 something.
We had about $220,000 projected still, but if you're going to buy bleachers out of that savings, that's going to eat some of that up. So that's, you know, your options are budget more out of fund balance if the commission approves that, cut elsewhere in the budget, not buy bleachers, and use some of that, but 282 is the estimate.
Chad?
I think in the sake of time and for all the questions we have and to sit back and think about this, I'd like to see us put this back into our workshop, and then we'll take it up next month. I won't make a motion because I want everybody to get their questions answered, but.
Well, I kind of lean to what you want to do, but it sounds to me like that the $338,000 has to go to the teachers. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah,
So how are you going to do that?
Yeah.
And I think what you laid out makes perfectly good sense. I think that's what we go ahead and go with now.
I agree.
We lock that in, and then we come back to the workshop and figure out how we're going to take care of the classified staff. How many classified employees do we have?
462 full-time, 50 part-time.
Yeah, my only thought was, I mean, every time we've ever given a raise or a bonus, wherever we get it system-wide, you know.
But we're not giving it.
Well, I know,
We're not
but
giving
still,
it.
it's in the eyes of everybody else we are.
Well,
I mean, that's just,
Does
that's.
that include bus drivers and everybody? I mean, is that?
Yeah, that number of 462 plus 50 part-time, and most of those part-time are in SACC.
You know,
But yeah, the bus drivers would be
I believe
included in that
everything else
42.
out.
Well,
for
can we
now.
make that motion to do this tonight?
Take care of this.
You absolutely
I'd like to
can.
make that motion that we go ahead and the money that's been sent from the state, we go ahead and put that in. And then if we want to discuss other money at another day.
As of December 31st,
Right,
payable in
yes,
April.
whatever the
or-
specifications, yes.
Yeah, April's comfortable for us to meet that, we believe, with my staff, we've discussed that. And, so.
second,
Okay.
on her motion.
Are you specifying this as a bonus and not a raise?
Oh, it's definitely a bonus.
I would, you
I
could.
thought
We're not changing the pay.
It's a bonus from the state.
Yeah,
Right.
or
But
a
he's-
supplement from the state, whatever you want to call it.
Because he's adding it to their existing
Yeah.
paycheck, it's not coming as a
Yeah,
bonus,
if we
so
do
that
a
it goes
single
toward their.
standalone check, they could be more tax implications.
Okay.
We'll go at it just like we do an adjustment to their gross pay.
Is that what you said, Mary Beth?
Yes.
Okay. And that seconded it. Any more discussion before we vote? Anybody else? Go ahead.
I think we're picking and choosing who's getting, I know it's what the state said this money's gotta go for, but we're picking and choosing again. And I've not supported that yet. I can't support this either.
All right. Let's vote, Jennifer.
Open up.
And you will put in that was like $470.
Yes,
per-
I'll go back and put in, I'll get with
And
Mr.
that is
Bill.
before taxes, that's gross pay.
Yeah,
before
you and I'll
taxes.
work on the specific language for you.
Yeah, and the money was sent from the
This
state.
was discussed
Yeah.
at the state level, and I had gotten on some type of a specific site, and Rusty Crowe, or Senator Rusty Crowe had asked Commissioner Swin, I want this to go to the teachers, this particular money. Now, the money that we want to discuss and add more to, but that wasn't what it was intended for. I mean,
Yeah, I
I'm
don't-
just saying.
I mean, I understand
Yeah.
that, but it's just, to me, yes, our teachers has done above and beyond, but so has our support staff.
Well, and I don't care
Yeah.
to discuss that coming out of our
Yeah.
budget later, but this
Yeah.
is deemed, this is where it has to go.
Motion
I just
carried.
think we ought to do it all at one
Next
time.
item.
Go ahead, Dr.
All
Clarence.
right, Mr. Chairman, some data became available from the State Department for the report card process. It was embargoed and unavailable to the public until a couple of days ago. I want to show you some of it. I have compared us with 15 Northeast Tennessee public school systems. The first slide is per pupil expenditure. Would anybody at the table care to guess where we rank?
15.
Good.
Okay, I've got 15. Anybody else?
How many?
15 school systems.
15 school systems?
Well, let's just go ahead and show you that we rank 15th out of 15. We used to say, thank goodness for Greene County, not anymore. I'll give you a moment to look at that.
Could we get a copy of that?
It's in BOE Connect, and I'd be happy to give you a paper copy, because this needs to be known.
Yeah, you're right.
I have a can, the people that are watching, can they see that?
No, ma'am.
No. Can
Not-
they
not-
see,
Okay.
can they see how we vote?
What's that, Mike? Didn't answer.
They can read the minutes.
That's true.
I don't want to.
And I rather hope the media will call tomorrow and request this.
I was gonna say, I hope a copy gets to.
All right, so
Go to that next slide though, because I like it better than I like
Okay.
this one better.
It's not enough to say that Danville County Commission's doing us wrong, because if you look at what our local source of funds is, we do pretty well.
That would be considered the $6 million that,
All of it. Nowhere.
No, that $6 million is capital money, and that's outside of this right here.
Right.
Yeah, that's not even, the state doesn't even know about that.
You throw that in there, it probably moves it up a notch or two.
It might take us right on up there, well, not near Johnson
No,
City,
but
but,
it moves you up.
So
a
we're
notch.
saying we're getting plenty of money and we
No.
are,
No,
I'm saying this is a very rich county that does not, get very much federal funding.
federal funding, not local.
You know, and as far as what the local is doing, now, the local could do more because we're a rich county, but we are so rich that when the feds look at us as an entity, they say, well, they don't need any money. They've got plenty. So it's not enough to simply say the county commission's stingy. It's the Title 1A rules which are stacked against us.
And if fiscal capacity went to a system level issue, we'd probably move to about second.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I
So
mean,
we are
it really is,
throwing in
we're hamstrung in the county.
All right, I'll move ahead unless somebody wants to ponder that a while longer.
Please, yeah.
All right, by number of teachers employed, look at the student-teacher ratio. We're right in there. There's not a whole lot of difference among these school systems. Hancock County has a lot of federal money. They're forced to hire a lot more teachers, but 15-to-1 is about where everybody else is and about where the state is. So we're okay with the number of teachers. I know we'd like to be 14-to-1. I'm glad we're not 16-to-1. That's what we are. Now, the ratio of instructional leaders to students. You know, everybody's fond of saying, well, they're top-heavy. They talk about it in government. I've heard it in my church. They're top-heavy. We've got too many employees. Well, if you look at the number of administrators, instructional leaders in the school system as a ratio to students, we rank pretty close to the bottom. So, folks, when it comes budget time and people say cut the fat, we are not top-heavy, and we never have been. All right, and moving on to another pretty telling characteristic, you look at the number of student support personnel, the counselors, instructional coaches, interventionists, and librarians, again, we are not top-heavy. When people say cut the fat, I'd like for them to look at our system and find it. Because among the 15 systems in Northeast Tennessee, we just don't have a whole lot of people in those areas that support people like librarians and counselors. Now moving on, I don't know that it's fair to compare us to systems in the area that are a third to a fourth of our size, so I looked at the state database. These are the 10 systems, 5 of which are larger than us, just larger, and the 5 that are just smaller. These are the ones that rank 20 to number 30. We're the 25th largest school system in the state. And if you don't know where Bedford County is, that's Shelbyville, down below Murfreesboro. And I'm sure a lot of folks in Bedford County don't know where Jonesboro is, so that kind of works out. Looking just at a couple of pieces of their data, among those, we rank 10th of 11 systems. And these are the systems that are most like us in terms of student population across this state. The only system that is lower than us is Bedford County. And they are pretty much in the middle of nowhere. And the total number of student support staff, again, we rank 10th of 11. This is not a top-heavy school system. There's not a lot of fat here when you compare it to the systems that are most like us around the state. And the total number of schools administrators, we rank right in the middle. And that's the data that I wanted to bring to you tonight.
Thanks, sir.
A couple more things. This is strange. The Washington County Sheriff's Department has been using the old Boones Creek Middle School for training, and they run dogs through there and the SWAT teams. They have called and want to do hostage training. And I couldn't say no because this involves sledgehammers. And since you own the building, before I let them take a sledgehammer to the doors, I thought you at least ought to have the chance to vote on it. What it is steel fire doors, and they won't lock them up, and they would say like somebody's taking hostages behind it, and they want to knock them down and train for that. So thought I'd better ask you before I say anything about that. And you've got some negotiating to do tonight, so I'll just put it out there. I'm not asking for action, just want you to know that if somebody does want to make a motion, that's fine. If you don't, then I'll just tell the sheriff, we just don't want to do it right now.
Can they take the rest of the jail out there and go ahead and turn it all down?
I was thinking, save us some
I
money.
will ask. They did say that you were welcome to come out and swing a sledgehammer with them if you wanted to.
Do they honestly think that if that door's shut, that they can take a sledgehammer and knock it open?
Yes, they do. They have devices that they can use to take down a steel fire door.
Now, you're talking
guy
about
behind
the internal doors, right?
Right.
I used to be a
Internal
breacher for the SWAT
fire.
team,
I'm sorry.
and it can be done.
I put my money
Well, I
on.
mean, I take a torch, you know, I can open it with a torch, but it's steel.
Okay, what do we wanna do with it? Anything?
I'll make a motion, we let them use it.
Second.
Second?
Can we wait till we see if we're gonna tear it down first?
Oh,
Well, we're past that.
I thought we voted on that.
You're
We've
still
not heard
looking
of,
at
we,
bids.
we've
We
not,
haven't got the bid
we've
back.
not got the bids back, that's why I wait till we,
I'd like to see what.
I'd like to
the bid
rescind
on.
my motion,
Me
please.
too. I thought we had already.
I'd like to wait till we see what the.
Where they
what
want to do that, Dr. Planner?
As soon as you say they can, but before you tear it down.
Well, can we?
Forward.
So if we wait a few weeks, that ain't gonna,
I'll just tell them, we'll have to wait till we see what the bids come in, but before we tear it down, we'll let them go in there and get started.
let them tear it down first.
So when you turn it over to the demolition company, nobody goes in there.
Right.
But, we'll work it out, it's just not right now.
Dr. Flannery, there was a mention of some people that used to go to school there, and there was a couple of time capsules that are buried out there that you mentioned. What is are we gonna allow those people to come through there at one point in time?
We need to go by the executive order and not have a big crowd, but I don't see why you wouldn't.
What I'd like to do if we could, and I wouldn't care to do it, if we could do it like on a Sunday, I wouldn't care to be there to open it up and, walk through with them,
I've
if
had
that,
people
if
ask
we
for
can.
that too.
I've had a lot of people ask, wanna, a
Kind of
lot of alumni.
finalize, yeah.
Does anyone know where the time capsules are at?
And a few that want to buy a brick or
Yeah, I've heard
have a
that
brick
too.
too.
I think if somebody gets hold of David Ford, we could probably find a time capsule.
Well, we'll just do this like church, and since you spoke up, you're in charge.
We can do that.
And, we'll work out something nice, maybe even have punch and cookies one Sunday before we tear the thing down, if you
Okay.
tear the thing down.
Thank you.
Lastly, and I swear it's the last thing, the Hold Harmless Act provided that the state could not require kindergarten teachers to complete the student growth portfolio this year. If you don't know what the student growth portfolio is, you're lucky. It was left to local citizens to decide. As of 2 o'clock this afternoon, we will not require our kindergarten teachers to complete the student growth portfolio, and I assure you that our kindergarten teachers are glad of it.
Good.
All right, yes ma'am.
What about the pre-K?
I don't know how they're evaluated. See, they're not
They do
part,
portfolios.
well, they're not part of the team evaluation system because they're technically child care. So you've gone over to a Cindy Hayes
Well,
question.
can we ask Cindy Hayes?
If she's paying attention.
Yep. No, she heard it. Actually got unmuted.
You asked about the pre-K portfolios.
Yes.
Those are completely separate, and in order to keep our grant funding with the pre-K portfolios, we have to continue that process.
There you go.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
I'm done.
All right, you did good.
Thank you.
Okay, action items tonight. Number 1 would be broker's realty contract renewal. Do we have any thoughts, motions, discussion?
Should be 2 things in BOE Connect, a contract proposed by the brokers and something else that was received hours ago from Keller Williams.
So let me tell you about that. If you hadn't read it, has everybody seen it? Nobody seen it?
Nope.
Basically, they're requesting a one-time showing at a sales price of, it's a one-time showing at a sales price of 1.4 million, which does not mean they're offering 1.4 million. They're saying, can we go show somebody? If we show them, will you pay us 6% commission? I think you ought to tidy up your contract with the broker before you do anything else, in my opinion. Would you agree?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
And it says the term of this agreement for the customer disclosed is 12 months from the date. of
Yeah, I didn't want to get into it till y'all look at it.
Okay.
I wouldn't do that. I'd just give them 30 days, and then if we,
That's pretty standard in commercial.
Okay.
I mean, it's just a protection against them. But Jason, I was talking earlier, you know, I think we could amend that to 30 days.
Okay.
then if they get an offer, then you all have the option to do whatever you want to do at that point, but this is just to see if they're
All
going to
this
make
is,
one.
he's just asking If he brings us a contract from this one gentleman here, or whoever this is, that we pay him 6% of the asking price. Basically is all it is.
And you still gotta agree on the offer price and,
Right.
you know, the whole process, but
As opposed to it going back to,
brokers.
yeah.
He's not
Well,
asking,
this is two separate deals.
he's not asking for a listing. He's just asking.
Just
if he-
one time
If he brings
shot.
us the contract, will we pay him?
Right, but if you renew your broker's agreement
he has-
right now, then.
He will work through them.
I don't-
Yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
I don't think we need to renew that broker's agreement at this time. I think because we've got a lot going on with that property, and then we've got this other offer to one-time show, plus we may tear it down. So we may not tie that thing up for a year. I don't think that'd be a very good idea. We can always go back to them if we want, when we get ready and decide what we're gonna do. But
And too, I think if we demo it, like Keith and I was talking, I mean, we could always put it back out for bid.
Right, I'd like to do that too.
And that one's safe.
I agree, we don't need to renew it at this point, but we need to remember they have done a lot of work out there, as in putting it into lots and things like that for us to sell after we tear it down. So, I mean, they've put a lot of time and I guess money, effort into, you know, showing that to us and doing that for us. So if we decided to go back in lots, I really think we need to really consider going back with them because they've already put the work into it.
And they're the only ones that showed up when we needed somebody.
I
Mary
have a
Beth?
question about this 1 month. You said 1 month?
Well, somewhere, see out there it says 12 months. Basically, what you know, my personal opinion on that, if it were my property, I wouldn't want to, you know, if you end up going back and listing it with the brokers in 6 months or whoever, then he's got a
This
year.
guy's exempt from that contract.
Yeah, and they're not gonna appreciate that. So you need to give, you just need to, on this, you need to put a certain amount of days and then be done with it.
And
Oh, yeah,
this-
because this is open for 12 months, isn't it?
Yeah.
No,
I mean, I think it's fine all but 12 months.
No, that's what, like 30 days works for
And
me.
this is the way it is
If you got
now.
somebody
This
that-
is
If we
when-
plan on tearing it down, the price may go up.
That's what I think. I think
Well,
So-
that's why.
If
they
this guy
only-
wants to come in there and give us $1.4 million for it, then we'll talk about it.
As is, right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but if he don't,
I think
give him
you're-
30 days and let him try to sell it.
I think you get the cart before the horse. You better
Chad.
wait and see if you got a contract.
That's right. I
And
agree.
then see what it says.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. No, I'll make a motion, we go into agreement with Keller Williams for 30 days, to amend the term of the agreement for 30 days, and that's my motion.
That's the end of it. We got a second on that?
I second.
Any more discussion?
Well, do we need to vote on being done with brokers?
You don't
No,
have to
we're
do
done.
anything.
We're
You don't
done.
have to do anything.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
You don't do nothing.
Roll call, button push, Jennifer.
It's open.
It's open, here we go. And if it's carries Dr. Flannery, you'll get back with Andy and,
Yeah, we'll get together.
yeah, somebody do it.
Whatever the board does tonight, we take care of it in the morning.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing.
I didn't do nothing.
You make fun
I
of
didn't do nothing. I made fun of Keith and helping me.
Hey, Mitch said you can borrow his.
Mr. Chairman,
That way
Yes,
it's
sir.
open.
will we be bringing back the brokers or the discussion?
That's up
that
to you
after 30
guys.
days?
That's up to you guys. Somebody wants to put it back on the agenda.
Thank you, appreciate it.
So we'll wait till after the budget.
Well, I just think till after, there's no sense in paying them if we can't decide to tear it down or not.
Yeah, I think we kinda do need to do, before we bring them back, I think we need to decide if we're gonna tear it down or not tear it down, in my opinion. Then that way, if they're gonna relist, they know what to list. But remember, they brought us all that stuff during the thing, and you may like it,
Well,
you
they've
may
had a
not.
year to try to sell it.
Well, Keith,
I'm sorry, but.
do you know what the percentage of selling a building like that
You know,
About one or
they've had a
whatever.
year.
Bet zero right now, Mr. Chairman.
is? It ain't like selling a house, it's a little different.
It carried.
Good to
I
you.
was thinking of that.
Yeah. Okay, FFCRA benefits proposal. Who's handling that? Action. I am.
Let's defer that till next month.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to defer that till next month. Any discussion?
For
Vote.
workshop.
Vote Jennifer.
But I got a question.
Okay.
Why would we want to? Let me ask just benefits for the people that it gets quarantined.
Well,
I mean, that's my only question.
I want to, I mean, it's a federal law that expired and we're doing something different. And I'd like to see how many of our different systems are actually doing the same thing.
That's what you
Can we
got.
add
If
that
it's a
to
good
the
idea or not. We can
workshop?
put it in the workshop.
Sure, yeah,
Sorry.
somebody just put it, yeah.
Can we just add that to the workshop for when we do the guide? That way we'll have 2 items on the agenda and done.
Well, the guide won't be a workshop, it'll have to be a call, because we'll have to vote on that.
We could do a 30-minute before, or is that long enough,
Can I
Mitch?
say something
Oh, I
about that?
think
Since
yes,
you
ma'am.
brought that up. Tomorrow's Friday. You all leave, you've got your conference, you know, the 15th and 16th. So we need to decide before we leave tonight so I can get it proper public notice.
Does it have to be
Y'all
next
have to
week?
meet, you'll have to do it next week.
We'll do it before we leave here in a minute.
Yeah, so just don't forget.
Can we move this item to that, and I guess is what we're saying?
That's what I'm
Because
saying.
we're gonna have
because-
to take board action to approve what questions to ask, because it'll have to be,
Right,
you know,
Can't be
enough people.
workshop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right. I understand that, so we just need to move that there and it will be a call or something.
It looks like it's gonna have to be like next week, maybe
Yeah.
the 11th, on a Thursday night. We can talk about it later, but
Yeah.
that's an idea. Okay, so we're gonna vote on
To defer.
defer.
That's all.
Yeah, we're gonna vote to defer.
It's open.
It is open. Okay.
And it carries.
Okay, next item on the list is to rescind previous board action and remove the portable at Fall Branch School as surplus.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? I'm gonna say I'm out on that, just for the record, because we need to get them things going.
That was Mr. Fleener and who?
Mr. Masters.
Dr. Flannery, did you get a phone call from that gentleman?
Mr.
yet?
Winky's the one that asked for that.
Okay, I'll follow up with him.
I don't care.
Is that thing in?
We've been talking about getting them as long as I've been here, and we ain't got rid of them yet. Now we finally was about to get rid of them, we're bringing them back.
No, just this one.
for
Is
now.
it in good shape? Does
I thought
anybody know?
Mr. Patrick said
It's
it
a-
was in good
The
shape.
principal says
Just
it's in a good enough shape to safely use as a classroom. It's one building, it's 2 classrooms.
It's where the kindergarten used to be.
Yeah, it still is.
Still is, okay.
What
And
do
I
you
think
use
like
it for?
the kindergarten class, and I think maybe school-age childcare.
He was planning for next year that they may have an increase in students, is what was said in the workshop.
And his
And
enrollment,
just,
Yeah.
just in case.
he's holding at about 250 students too, so he's doing pretty good.
Good.
He's not saying he's going to use it, he just might have to.
Okay, vote Jennifer.
It's open.
We're not declaring it as surplus.
Or we're sending that.
We're sending it and it will be declared surplus.
Say it will be declared surplus.
Will not be.
No.
I mean,
They
it
all
will
are
not be,
except this one.
sorry.
Right.
Yeah, sorry. Carries.
Okay, next on the list, persimmon,
Permission.
permission for Daniel Boone High School Athletic Department to replace the fencing and baseball field.
I make a motion to give them permission.
Second.
Any discussion?
And I've got one question for Mr. Hale. Did you have a chance to work numbers yet on athletic events up to now on revenue?
I do, give me a minute and I should be able to
That's
pull
fine.
that up. I didn't have that pulled up, but I do have that.
The reason why I was asking, I would like to see if we could help them in the, when we get all the numbers together on this.
Can we still vote on whether to do it or not?
Yeah, but I'm just,
Okay. I mean, because that's
yes,
two different things.
it is.
I think we'll do somebody asked for nothing like
Well, that's the reason I was curious to see where they're at on their funds too.
Okay.
All right, can we get a motion?
You got it.
You
We
did?
got it, second?
Yeah.
Ready to vote?
Yes.
Open.
Thank you.
The real DB, that's what I like to see.
Information for Salmon. Thank you, see.
You think it's persimmon red?
That's what I say that, I think it was red. I got something. Okay, very good. Approval for bleacher replacement at Gray Elementary.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
A bunch of seconds.
Third, fourth. Carried.
Now, this is just for the gray one, right?
This
This
one
isn't
is.
for the other
This one
two.
is. We're
Because
gonna
it
do
was
that.
totally different than the others.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'm assuming I'm pulling this out of some of the savings we've already identified from previous meetings, so
All right,
We need to make that a part of the motion, Brad.
Please,
you
please.
should.
Can I amend that motion to,
clean it up.
I make the motion, we buy the gray bleachers with cost savings money
Sounds better.
from 2020.
All right, and then we've got a second on that still.
Mary Beth or
You still
Annette,
second
one
that?
of them.
That's
Okay.
$77,608.
It's open.
Is that right?
Out of savings money.
Yeah, but I mean, the cost of it's $77,608.
Yes, that was the one with the electric.
That'll come off of that 220 where we said we still had, so just that takes that down to around 150.
All right, tell me when it's good,
Carries.
Carries, okay. Next on the agenda is approval of bleacher replacement at Daniel Boone High School.
I just got a comment before we even, I think before we vote on this, I would like for everybody to consider, if we're gonna pull the money out of our savings, please consider our non-certified teachers. If we're gonna use some of that money for that. Just FYI, I guess. I just think we all, again, I just think we all need a raise, or a bonus, should I say, not a raise.
Anybody else? Okay. Vote, Jennifer.
I didn't
You got
have
a
a
motion?
motion.
Oh, we got a motion?
You want a motion?
No.
You gonna make a motion?
I just want to say that.
That was you just making a comment, you hadn't moved on yet, sir.
I'm sorry.
Well, we start talking about teachers again, I thought.
Didn't
We
want to-
talking about bleachers. Approve, so we need a motion for the bleacher replacement at Daniel Boone High School,
With money coming from.
with money coming from savings.
So moved.
Second. Okay, now we got it.
Yeah, I'm gonna, the gray, we replaced that because as I understood it, the bleachers that were there were tearing up the floor that was in
It is
place.
broke.
Well, they were broken.
Right, and these other two, yeah, but what I get on the gray is that they were tearing up the floor, they were broken.
And somebody done fell at grade too, I think.
And Crockett and Boone, you know, like I said in the workshop, I think, you know, that stuff ought to be in part of our capital plan, part of our budget. So for that reason, I'm gonna probably bail out on both of those.
Crockett's is broke, isn't it?
Yeah.
All the people.
They're all broke.
One section's broke.
Yeah, they went open
I understand where Mitch is coming from, but we've beat this for 3 months. So I'm, whatever y'all wanna do, but.
Well, you vote on it. It'll be like the portable.
Yeah. Vote on it. Okay, let's vote. It's only yes or no, ain't it, Mitch?
50-50 chance of getting it.
That's right. I forget, like my Baptist preacher told me one time, if you don't see them, if you don't see them. Okay,
Carries.
carries. Approval of bleacher replacement at David Crockett High School.
I'll make that motion to replace the bleachers at David Crockett High School with the cost savings money.
Thank you, Ms. Fender. Do we got a second?
Second.
Mr. Buchanan.
But the bottom bleachers, not all.
Yeah, it's the bottom bleachers.
Yeah,
That's just what's on that estimate.
yeah. Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
Open.
Open.
Carries.
y'all remind me the price on Boone and Crockett so I can log it here? For the bleachers?
Yeah, and it's in
It's in BOE.
BOE
I don't
too.
have it up.
Well, it's underneath the gray one. Look under gray, but all three of them are under the gray elementary one in that document.
37,764 for Crockett.
Coach Flan, do you got any input on
And
this?
45,590.
No,
40
meeting date for budget workshop.
I'll work for you.
When is it?
Total was 160,
I need help on that.
962.42.
Is it due April 1st? Is that the, what
May
day?
the,
So
May
these
the
are
first.
59,000.
I have to send it to Mitch on May the first.
Okay.
So we need to, is this gonna be a 2-day course, probably, Mitch, on this budget?
We need to do that, follow our finance director.
I mean, I don't wanna wait the last minute, but I guess we need to do that in March then, don't we?
Brad, is that where you just go over the funding process, or what is this?
Yeah, I mean, we talked earlier today, and I didn't ask you, but, you know, when do you plan on pulling a base budget together?
That'll be when I get the first BEP, which will be somewhere around that March 21st timeframe.
Okay.
That's when the state will send me the very first BEP estimate. So, it would have to be, it could be that week, you know, but I have to have that first BEP estimate to have a reasonable, you know, budget there. And they're saying if it doesn't change, they're gonna fund a strong increase in the BEP that is recurring. So it could be significant, you know, if it's 4%, before it hits the formula, I mean, we could be talking $1 million, $1.5 million in new revenue. But that's just, it's not final, it's final, so. But that's what the call that I was on this week indicated.
And you said the date on that was what?
March 21st, right around that.
Yeah.
It's usually, give or take a few days, is when we get the first BEP estimate from the state.
February's just
Yeah, but can we get, I mean, you know, we've got new board members on this. I mean, is there some way for us to start in early March, just looking at the expenditures where we are?
Yeah, I just won't have a
Right.
good revenue estimate
Right.
at that time.
Right.
but
I think we
sure.
need to probably start looking on the expenditure side.
What y'all think about March 8th?
A wish list.
That's a Monday night.
I'm free.
Does anybody like Mondays?
Works for me.
Okay.
You wanna do that? So March 8th be day one of this?
Okay.
Yeah. I was going 5 o'clock.
How about 4?
How about 4?
How about 5?
How about 4:30?
How about 4:30 at least?
4:15.
4:30.
No,
Yeah,
You're
I'm
out,
gonna
you're
work.
out, you're too far out. You got the conversation
split the
late.
difference.
I'm sorry.
Hush over.
All right, we got that. Let's move on to ESSER funds.
What, if we go where?
March 8th at 4:30. Yes, ma'am.
Let's set a second one too, and if we don't need it, we don't hold it, but it'll help Jennifer get her schedule together.
Well, let's go the 15th, Mitch.
Okay.
Because you ain't got but 1 week between them anyway.
Don't we need to wait till the second one needs to be when Brad gets his information?
Well, we'll be back in late March with that, and that way we'll be able to implement, you know, everybody's, you know, what
That's
we're
spring
going
break.
to do.
Everybody's going.
March 15th?
No,
Do what?
27th, spring break.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry.
I mean,
That's for-
29th, excuse me.
That's for university, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right.
You mean
Unless
to
you're
get
taking
the
a long
spring
one.
break?
Well,
So far,
everybody's been
If
working.
it don't snow?
All right, March 15th at 4:30 tentatively, Jennifer, on the other one.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, now, we good for ESSER funds?
You're moving right along, Mr. Chairman, that's all I like to see.
Yes, sir. Keep it moving. Take care of business.
Oh, 5 minutes.
Are you serious? They were at the last one. Well, we got 2 things. This and WCA, so we got that.
My app, my addition.
And your
So
addition.
on that.
If you need to, we'll do it. Sure. Okay. Where we at on this?
ESSER funds?
Dr. Flannery.
I believe, Mr. Meredith has a resolution about this.
He does, and I want to thank Dr. Flannery and the staff for, showing us where the initial idea of spending $5.3 million of CARES Act money goes. As I went through that and highlighted those items that were direct educational related, to offset direct educational loss, that was $1.9 million, or 36% of the total. As I said in the workshop, I think we ought to be putting more money into our academic recovery modes, and the first comment. The second comment is we've got $2 million in HVAC upgrades, which may or may not be needed. Well, I'm sure they're needed, but are they in relation to prioritizing our educational achievement? Are they all that critical?
Can I?
Well,
Okay. You can finish, I want to
okay.
about all that.
The other thing is in looking at the information related to the $5.3 million, is that it was pretty clear to me that we can be reimbursed in our general purpose school fund all the way back to March 10th, I believe, March 21st, for prior expenses related to hazard pay, bonuses, bus drivers delivering educational packets, ionizers, sanitation equipment, school-age child care for employees, kids. And, I would like to see us take an active approach at looking at all those costs and protect PPE for another one. I'd like to see us take a really in-depth drill down and get reimbursed for all those costs first, because then they go to our fund balance, and then we choose where we're going to use them and how we're going to use them, as opposed to, dumping 60% of the money into facilities. Not that we don't need to do them, but I don't think that that's what this money's for. I didn't see anything in the list for professional development of any substance to help our teachers along with virtual teaching, which I suspect will be with us for some time. And I don't mean months, I mean probably years from time to time. So, and I do understand that, we are working on a deadline, that the information has to be submitted into E-Plan, and I believe that is March the 1st. So, and then the Department of Education will make a determination by April 1st as to what is acceptable and not. So I do have a resolution, if you will, or a motion that I think if Jennifer doesn't have it, I don't want to read it because it's fairly lengthy. But because when we adopted our budget, our federal projects budget, we gave carte blanche. The federal budget was whatever the school submitted, or the director submitted, and whatever was approved by the Department of Education. So we have no budgetary control over these dollars unless we do something tonight. And so what my motion essentially is that this list, or whatever this list may become, has to be approved by this board before it's submitted to the Department of Education. In a nutshell, that's what it is. And Mr. Chairman, so I would submit this resolution, if you will, as a motion.
Second.
Can we take a
Second.
Second.
So we can't use none of that money
Yes,
for
sir.
facility upgrades?
No, I didn't say that. I'm just saying the board has to make that determination.
Now, the Wharton Gillingham training, that is professional development, is that correct? And that's for how, I mean, is it just for Jonesboro Elementary School, or would it be, I mean, because it only says for instructors.
Mitch, what did you say?
March 1st, is Brad, March 1st is when Jerry has to submit the plans, the projects, if you will, into E-Plan.
E-Plan's a state site, so we have a deadline. So the board would have, whatever you do, you gotta approve it. I would say a few days before March 1st, at the latest. Ideally, a week or two would be great. Give us that.
My question on that is, where are we going to time?
We got several meetings between now and the end of February.
Yeah.
But I
So
mean,
we tack it on, I think you tack it on to one of the.
There's more of the top, isn't there? This is like a new card. No.
Yes.
Well, that's different.
well,
Mr. Chairman.
yes, sir.
What Mitch has brought up, I like the idea of getting reimbursed. I believe Mr. Flannery needs to, and Brad needs to go back over what this list is
That's what.
and prioritize and bring us back what we feel like we need to do in the system. I mean,
Well, I agree. Trying to figure out when we're
well,
gonna do it. We ain't got much.
the list that you had, that you give us, was last week, right?
He didn't give us a list. This was just a BOE Connect.
Here's a,
So how much of that and that is
Line
the
up.
same, lines up, yeah.
I don't understand that important.
what Mitch is presenting.
What Mitch is talking about,
The
getting
reimbursement,
reimbursed
the
and stuff like
reimbursements of
that.
expenses we've incurred since March of last year
Yeah.
that can be reimbursed under.
Is that part of
that?
that 5 point?
No, nothing on that list has any reimbursement. What that represents are what 11 curriculum supervisors and system supervisors came up with. It was winnowed down from a much larger list. The original list was probably 8 or 9 million. The supervisors cut that down. That is the recommendation of my office in its entirety.
Now, what you're asking for, help me on this, so this right here equals the 5 point whatever
That's
million.
every dime of it.
Yeah, and if the board,
But what is what I was gonna say is what you're asking for, is that extra money we can regain?
not extra money.
Okay.
What it would do is if you had, $500,000 in PPE and hazard pay, you could be reimbursed for that. You probably reduce your HVAC upgrades by $500,000.
But you get your money back.
You get your money back.
Okay.
And it's in the bank account. So we need to make sure we get all the
So
money.
6 one, half dozen the other. I'm either gonna get, I'm gonna do HVAC work
And if
and not get reimbursed on this other, or I'm gonna get reimbursed and not do HVAC
If
work.
you're ready to spend $2 million on HVAC upgrades that you don't have a clue what those are, then yes, sir, that's exactly what you can do.
Well, what the main thing he's saying though is we need to make sure we're the ones that prioritize what the list is.
Right.
Instead of just going off this list. That's what,
I think we're short on education dollars. And I don't think that the next director is gonna have any money to do anything with. If you're reimbursed, you do.
Right.
So I do not see any money on here for K through 8 summer school.
That's what I was asking.
Okay, I can address that. There originally was several $100,000 for K-8 summer school, but the Learning Loss Act completely replaced that. We'll find out tomorrow, I'm anticipating about $350,000 for summer school from the state. That's why, when we found that out, we would completely remove it from that list. That happened.
How much did you say, 300?
I'm anticipating, I don't want to go on record
Okay,
with that, but they gave us how the formula is going to work, so that's what I'm anticipating.
About
We'll find out
350.
by this time tomorrow, we'll know.
That's not a lot spread across 15
All the people that are gonna
schools.
want it, right?
Yeah, that are going,
that's money that may be there.
right.
That's
So-
just like it may snow again. I mean,
Right, but what,
Well, I have to make a quick decision on that.
Well, you got a motion second to just pretty much delay this, is what your motion second for.
Well, I know, but I want to tell you before we vote, you got meetings the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and then you're in the federal, in your.
Board meeting next week,
Can I see
potentially.
We got off.
You have a copy of that
Well, no, you got a
resolution?
meeting next week.
Well, I mean,
Can I see that resolution?
Oh, what's that?
Well, we hadn't said it, but remember, we got two things on our, I've already forgot what they were for.
We're gonna come the 11th or something.
And then.
The
What?
questions,
We have, yeah, the questions.
That's right.
and,
And that's the 11th.
We could attack this on to the 11th.
That's what we have to do, I believe.
Mitch, we
So
have
what
to
you're
test the
saying-
11th.
That's about all you got.
So what you're saying is if we reimburse the budget, we're not confined to a certain list by
Yeah, and
the
you,
state?
yeah, and you got a year, I mean, all the money under the ESSER stuff has to be obligated by
Yes.
June 30th of 2023. Now, you don't have to spend it all this year, you just have to obligate it. So we'd be locking that in. If it's in our fund balance, then we've got it in future years for, you know, a direction that a new administration may want to have.
All right, let me ask something else. So, Dr. Flannery, if we meet on the 11th about what Whitney was just referring to, that's gonna take an action. So that's a called meeting, correct?
It doesn't have to.
well, we had
Not
to do
this,
things,
the
the
other,
questions,
The list of
Help
questions
me.
we're going
and
to
if,
possibly.
Yeah.
FCCR,
Yeah.
whatever.
So we need, what I'm getting at is if we wanna meet, and we're gonna do it on the 11th, we need to do like we done in the past and have 4:30s this meeting, 5:30s a called meeting.
Do we not need to see
All of
if
them are
the
called meeting
resolution
questions.
passes first?
But we ain't gonna vote. We voting on this too?
We're just voting on the
The 11th.
resolution.
the 11th, tonight, but the 11th would be talking about this, the FFRCRA, double N.
But are we voting on every single thing we're gonna talk about that night, or just those two things?
No, and the teacher questions.
So one meeting,
Yeah.
Yeah, one meeting, just
Okay.
call meeting, I think we can do it.
okay,
I need guidance.
okay.
I see this resolution and I read it, and it's copied and pasted basically from the federal act. What
The
does
first
this,
paragraph is.
what does this do to that list?
It-
What does this board want in a itemized list?
Fair question. Fair question. And I think I addressed part of it in my comments. I want to see how much we could be reimbursed for from expenses we incurred from March 10th of last year forward.
All right,
Okay.
there's one thing, and it will have to come out of HVAC, because the rest of it is basically a quoted price.
Right, exactly.
Now, when's this money have to be spent?
We've got a couple of years to
2023.
get it spent, but we have
Okay.
to have a plan in Nashville
March 1st.
end of this month.
I want to see focus put on, closing the gap. I want to see the money put more into students and learning than maybe some other things on there. I'm not,
What on there, please help me, I'm not trying to be facetious, what on there does not positively affect the student?
Do we need more textbooks?
well, can you,
Do we need more money in summer school? I mean, I hear you.
Are you,
220,000.
you know,
Salary
I know that they want the playground done, but, still not much, but go on, will you go on up through there and let me ask some questions, please? So, what is RTI Success Maker 3 years, 1,325 students?
Luckily, we have the RTI leader in the room, please come forward.
You know, and does that touch every kid?
No, just those that are not in tier 2 and tier 3. Go ahead.
Everything that I have on that ESSER proposal, I've got a handout here that kind of summarizes the justification for that. Success Maker Math, currently, we don't have a program for our tier 2 and tier 3 math students, that's uniform across the county. Our interventionists are using whatever resources they can find to provide tier 2 and tier 3 intervention for our math students. And what the research we're seeing is showing is that our gaps are going to be largest in math as opposed to language arts. So when we're looking at providing instruction to close those gaps, we look at our tier 2 and tier 3 students. Those are some of our lowest performing students. And this Success Maker Math has some really high success rates. This is a 3-year license for 1,325 seats. I've spoken to most principals and all interventionists across the county to get that estimate, and this will touch every school in Washington County, K-8, for our tier 2 and tier 3 students. The Success Maker Middle School will touch all 5-8 students in Washington County. That 500 seats will cover all our tier 2, tier 3 needs for language arts in all K-8 schools. The Orton-Gillingham training was brought up a few minutes ago. That does not have anything to do with JES whatsoever.
Okay.
Okay, that is to cover, since the county trained interventionists in Orton-Gillingham, we've hired 4 new interventionists in Washington County. That's Sulphur Springs, that's Fall Branch, that's Ridgeview, and that's Gray. And those 4 ladies have not been trained in Orton-Gillingham, and that is our preferred tier 2 intervention. So I would like to get, and we can't use their materials unless they're trained in that program. So I would like to see them trained. They would like to be trained. That was actually their request.
Did you touch on
The 95% group
Yeah.
needs. You actually have a spreadsheet in the packet that I gave you that gives you a breakdown of every single item that we propose to purchase per school. Basically, 95% group is our tier 3 intervention that we prefer to use for reading deficits. And what we've been doing over the past few years is we've been able as a district to purchase a few items for schools and interventionists to check out as needed. However, the schools have been purchasing items on their own, and this $79,000 will fill every hole that we need countywide for 95% group. And then the book kits there at the bottom are take-home libraries for each school that can be used for our tier 2 and 3 students to help support 20 minutes of reading each night.
Yeah, I'll say that all the stuff that you've touched on is part of my 36%.
Right.
Right.
You know,
Right.
in including the smart boards and whatnot,
Right.
Power School and all the stuff that we're doing.
Well, and I
that
don't
has
want,
direct,
yeah,
and,
and
you know,
I don't want to be
impact
seen as, this isn't for Jonesboro Elementary School, this is for Washington County. I did this in my role as RTI supervisor, so coordinated.
So, do we want to go over all this at the workshop on 11?
Yeah, and I mean,
You've got every supervisor involved in the room right now.
I wanted to ask, see, Ms. Hayes, well, how much money did you say was gonna be devoted to, K through 8?
I'm guessing $330,000 to $340,000
Do you
for
think
some
that's
school.
gonna be enough, or we'll have to add to it anyway, won't we?
We are able to add some Title 1A funds to that. We may have to pull from ESSER 2.0. We can do that, we prefer not to, but we can do that.
It's too far in
What's the
advance to
pay
find out, of course, things come up, who's gonna want to participate, right?
We have to recruit teachers and we have to recruit students, and we may not know until a week before we start who all's gonna be necessary, who all's not sure.
That's hard to plan for
So
then.
what we need is to maintain a good deal of flexibility with ESSER 2.0, because what May is going to look like may be vastly different than what we think sitting here in February.
And we do have a steering committee that's going to meet Monday and Tuesday. And it represents principals and lead teachers and different leaders for the first round. And then we pull in the logistic part of the team. and we're going to plan, and hopefully that will give us an idea of that, with the budget, but we're gonna work within it.
Okay,
Yeah.
good, thank you.
That's fair.
Well, and Dr. Flannery, I'm going to echo exactly what you just said. We need to maintain flexibility with ESSER 2.0. And we maximize that flexibility by having our accounting folks go back, scour the numbers, pull back in the overtime, the hazard pay, the PPE cost, professional, the stuff that we needed to do that we haven't already been paid for under grant funding, and have that reimbursed to the system. And that's going to provide a pot of money that gives you flexibility to extend your summer school programs. If you don't, then you're, I don't know. We're committing it to HVAC systems.
I'm sorry. I would like to go on record to say this. When we realized we had this kind of money, this decision wasn't made just with us. We reached out to principals, we reached out to teachers, and those lead teachers reached out to all of their corresponding, like science teachers. This was the resources that they said that they thought they needed to help close that gap for learning loss. And that was the focus, because I'll ask each group, science teachers, what do you need to help close the gap starting as soon as possible?
So we only need 1/3 of $5.3 million for education. I mean, everything y'all have got, I'm fully supportive of that. It's the rest of the stuff on facilities that we're spending that we probably need to utilize for educational things.
Is there any questions about any of that?
What's the power school add-on?
We can't get that. We found out about 3 hours ago that it won't work with our technology. We're looking at using that money for a system, a program that 14 other area school systems are using.
What is it?
If you recall, we actually put that power school add-on in the 5-year plan. And we kept on wanting about it. Well, like I said a few hours ago, we found out that it's no longer what we need.
Okay.
So it's the system we're looking at is called CASE, C-A-S-E, and we get consortium pricing. I'm talking to the vendor next Wednesday, and the other superintendents in the area to see if we can get a Northeast Tennessee-wide consortium price. And it should be a plug and play, for lack of a better phrase, for the power school add-on. It is a benchmark assessment for all grades. We are the only system in Northeast Tennessee that doesn't have one because we've never been able to afford one.
But will it take the place of another assessment?
No, like I just said, we are the only system in Northeast Tennessee that doesn't have one because we could never afford one. The one that we have, we made ourselves.
So,
Our CFAs.
so how about, so your STAR testing won't be, so you'll be taking STAR test and these tests
No,
benchmarks?
stars are different thing.
That's for progress monitoring.
Okay.
Yeah. But like at the high school, for Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, English 9, and English 10, it's a way for them to give common formative assessments to track our progress. So the teachers meet the PLCs will know exactly where each kid is on that specific standard. And they can have real conversations about how do we support our kids.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else? Thank you, Ashley.
And all the supervisors are in the room if you care to ask questions about individual items.
What's water bottle for presentations?
We're going to add water bottle refill stations. We look at health in a holistic manner. Hydration increases students' focus, so they can focus in the classroom, which is going to increase their learning. If they have the water bottles, they're able to actually stay in the classroom rather than leave, and it decreases the amount of instruction that they have. We're also wanting to initiate healthy habits when students are young, so that they grow up with healthy habits to help them to grow into healthy individuals. We do a water education class with kindergarten students, and we give each of them water bottles so that they can actually use the water bottle refill stations.
Thank you. Minutes. So, are we still good? You want to restate that motion? Or we good?
Well, I don't, was there, I guess the only thing I would restate in it is that we would add, since we need to give a motion to direct people to do things, that we would add to that staff go back and look at in total the expenses we've incurred as a result of COVID-19 and use that as a plug into this thing and get reimbursed for those dollars since this started back in March, which would include things like overtime, hazard pay, those things I alluded to earlier.
Mr. Fender, Buchanan, seconded it. Let's
The
vote.
only thing about that is that's passed. We've done absorbed that, it's done. We've done all the paying out.
I don't have nothing to do with it, Keith.
Well, I don't want to
Well, it does
belabor it,
too.
but a lot of
They're
that,
gonna get
since
back.
we were under a state of emergency,
pulling
we
this
turned
to
it into
do it.
reimbursement through FEMA.
And if we've been
It's pulling
reimbursed.
out of
But
that,
we won't,
out of that
it may
five
be
money.
years before we get that, so is it the board's
We
intent
get
that I
it back.
take that out of
Put it
FEMA?
somewhere
We
else.
ain't gonna get it from FEMA, I don't think.
You're not getting what I'm saying.
No, I understand
I
clearly
take
what
it
you're saying,
down.
but I'm saying,
I'd
when you
like to
get
know
a
what all the
new director, he may
HVAC
gonna
is, I mean, because that's a
spend $1
big
million.
price. I would like the
He's gonna
HVAC
spend what
broken
this board
down, I'd like to know what all of that is, because that's a big price tag to just put HVAC on.
At the last meeting, you asked Mr. Patrick what he thought it would take in total, and he quoted 10 million. And we did talk about what he could do, I can get that. I'll have him break down what he can do with 2
But, you know, I know he said 10 million, but what is included in that 2 million?
That's the bad thing about this, my opinion, is there's the HVAC, we have no idea what that's getting. The power school add-on right there is not even existing, it's something else now. We're thinking it's 350 is what we're getting for the, middle school and elementary school for summer school, but really those aren't firm figures. At least if you went back and took the old money that we've already spent, you would have firm numbers. Some of this other, and I don't know how much, if you send them this wish list of 5.3 million to the state, and do you have much leeway, or are you guaranteed to spend that on your 5.3, or like that's 200,000 for sped teachers, salary for sped teachers, bus drivers, and aid for summer school program? If you don't spend but 150, does that 50 just wash
We
away?
can
Or
amend that plan right on up until it's expended 2.5 years from now. And we know that because we've done that with ESSER 1.0. It's pretty easy to amend a federal plan. We do it frequently around here, based on needs at the time.
You know,
If you were to approve this plan verbatim tonight, I promise you, by Tuesday of next week, it will be vastly different because of changing needs.
for me, the list is just not detailed enough, like science, middle school, I don't know what that means. I don't know,
Which one was it?
it says science, middle school, and that's it.
I believe, Twana, were you not part of that? Okay.
That's what I'm saying that I have the problem with, is the
Would you like
list
to hear her explanation?
is not, yes, the
Okay,
list is not
Twana, you're
detailed.
right.
Good evening. The Science Middle School is to target grades 5 through 8 in all the elementary schools. And the purpose is to work on the practices of the three-dimensional component of our science standards. Since March, they have not been doing practices because they have not physically been in school to do their practices, investigation, in working with scientific tools. And also, so they have a very big lack of doing that component of their standards. What we want to do is that for the 6th through 8th, we did our research and matched it with all their standards to do Carolina, Smithsonian, and in Carolina Smithsonian, it does all these manipulative kits and hands-on activities that can help close their learning loss that they have not been able to do because all they've been doing is science literacy, and that's it. Just the literacy component, not the rest of the standards. The other one is FOSS kits for grade 5, because that was the best fit for the standards. And then including that is called Generation Genius. Generation Genius actually will benefit all the elementary schools the way they write their proposal of their quotes. And so everyone gets tools for assessment style, tying it with specifically your standards, and they can also visit the previous standards and see if there's any kind of gaps of learning that they didn't learn from the previous year, and then they can try to close that gap between, let's say, 5th and 6th, 6th to 7th, 7th to 8th. But also, junior education just included math, a great math program that's tied in with it, and then the math teachers automatically could do the cross-curricular component in that program. Another program that will be part of this budget will be called Kessler, and Kessler is for just 30 teachers for a multiple year quote. And what they have is supplemental materials that are trying to fill in the gaps of Generation Genius and the manipulative standards. And it's downloadable materials that they can save in their drive forever. So it's a very, it's more of your research trying to close the gap between the standards that might be missing in the larger components. So you have, one more time, you have all your manipulatives. So equitability is across the system, which we haven't had in a really long time. As you know, a lot of people write grants to supplement what's in the classroom, or they buy it out of pocket many times. I've been a science teacher for 19 years before I did this. So you have to have manipulatives and materials to really get a holistic approach of science learning. And so you have Carolina, you have FOSS Kits, you have Generation Genius, and you have Kessler. And that will completely provide all your middle school science teachers across the board, and the students have equitability across the county.
Okay, so this is hands-on learning?
All of it, yes ma'am.
And is any of it just a computer program that they would be testing on, or is it just?
The Generation Genius will also help with that computer blended learning with their Chromebooks. Yes.
But most is hands-on learning. See, now, as I read that, the only thing I could think of was, okay, we're buying science experiment stuff. But that's, you know, that's more expanded. So I agree that's a great use of that money.
Yeah, it's completely holistic. We've closed a huge gap with that line item. I'm sorry,
Right.
it's so small.
I know. I just didn't know what it would consist of, so.
Oh, well, prior this evening, we were all asked to be here to do all the explanation because we knew talking one-on-one sometimes is better than what you read on paper, if that helps.
Okay, so while you're here.
Yes.
What is that, it says KJETs? KJETs?
The Kajits. That's our connectivity.
Is that like a mobile Wi-Fi hotspot?
Yes.
Okay.
But
what I
highly
thought.
filtered and protected.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right then.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman. Anybody else have any questions about what's on the list? The supervisors are here tonight. I've asked them to come to answer your questions specifically for this reason.
Might as well ask another question.
Or vote.
I can vote that, or?
I'd like to amend his motion that we wait till we bring this up at next week. And I would like to have that figure that what we have paid.
That's what I'm doing, Nikki. All this is saying is that Mr. Director, I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, it's Mr. Director, the board needs to weigh in on this and make the approval of what's going in. Because until we say that, this stuff could go in next week into E-Plan.
And
then
everything that I've sat right here and listened to, it's good.
Well, except
But
for
I
the
want
one-
to hear
how about
that
the-
figure of how much we have spent
Right.
before I make that motion that we go with that right there.
All you gotta do is vote yes.
That's what his motion
To the motion.
It's all
And then it
good,
doesn't
all
matter
good.
if you agree with it, next week we can talk about it and you can decide. That'll get you what you want.
I didn't hear that was the motion. I thought the motion was what Mitch was saying. That it was not to vote on that, to vote on what he was saying.
I didn't, all I was saying was that what I would like to see, Keith, is what can we get reimbursed for, okay?
Well, I ain't saying that I want to be reimbursed.
Well, but wait a minute, what we can get reimbursed for, because as Dr. Flannery said a minute ago, we may need some flexibility this summer. We may need some funding. So instead of committing it, $2 million to an HVAC program, we may be able to use 2 or 3 or 400,000 of that to extend summer school, or to get these kids' learning loss resolved. Anyway.
All right, let's please vote.
That actually makes sense. Now that you've explained it the fourth time, it makes
I mean,
sense.
that's, just flexibility is all. Money's money, it's just a pot where it goes and how you divvy it out. That just gives us a little extra chance to direct it.
But it has to be turned in by March 1st, correct?
Yeah, if we don't have it in by March 1st, we don't get anything.
We're meeting on it the 11th.
And another angle too, they are evaluated in the order they come in, and school systems across the state are already turning these in. So it may be April the 1st before we get a dime of it, if we wait until March the 1st.
So you think we need to vote on it? Well, next
No,
week, we can do next
No,
week.
what you want by way of records is not available tonight. It'll take a few days to
Right.
put that together.
Okay. So when are we meeting on the 11th?
4:30.
4:30.
May we vote? Please.
Oh, it does.
Yes, it doesn't
No, no, no.
Carries.
Very good. Okay. We had 2 requests to address the board. One opted out, one give Dr. Flannery a letter he'd like to read.
Which was, Ms. Rice said, I'm not able to make it to speak tonight. I appreciate the opportunity. She says her main concern was to talk to the board about allowing kids to return to school in person. You did that. So she said, I'll not be needing to reschedule or speak at this time. Abby Wilson, was she the one that was here last time?
Yes.
She has a very brief statement. She says, I feel like when parents ask to speak, it carries with it a negative connotation, like it mostly happens out of disappointment, and it may leave board members on the defensive. It's unfortunate that we had to meet this way, but it's also the only way I know that I'm actually being heard. I wanted to thank the board for sending the students back, but regrettably, it's in spite of most of this board that our students are going back. I do want to thank the few members that did fight for our kids and their education. Thank you. Another unfortunate is that I'd say on the whole, the Board of Education is largely unnoticed and under-acknowledged. Until something like a pandemic comes along, then you get all kinds of attention, good and bad. It's a little disappointing to fight for our kids, be told it's about saving and dismissed, but when money becomes a factor, all of a sudden our children can not only get to go back to the full on 5 days a week, 100% attendance. It sure makes me as a parent feel like it was never about safety at all. I will say thank you. Thank you for drawing attention to the importance of our local elections. You can guarantee more people will be paying more attention to them. I'm sure no one ran for this position for the fun of it. Any elected position takes leadership, takes risks. I'm asking you to remember why you ran for this position. You find it within to be bold and to take a stand for our kids and their future. Abby Wilson.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Wilson. Okay, new business. Before we get to WCEA, Mr. Masters had asked to put a hiring freeze on the agenda.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion, we put a hiring freeze on all hires and transfers until we get through the budget and discuss with our new director on, what we want to do moving forward.
Total hiring freeze across the board. No
Unless-
teachers, no instruction.
Unless you come to us with an emergency and say, I need this, and then.
Like a principal.
Mhm.
What if you don't meet for 3 weeks?
Can we have a call meeting or do
So
an
if the
executive
principal of
meeting?
South Central Elementary School leaves for Greene County, we need a call meeting to allow me to hire new.
How about an executive meeting?
That's,
Then
you're asking.
Need a call meeting for the director's responsibility.
That's just what I'd like to do.
Did you say till we get through the budget?
That could be in the new fiscal year.
If you're, Mike, if you have somebody that leaves and you have to replace that position, then do we want to be involved in that? I could see filling, moving chairs around on the deck. You may not want to do that at this point.
Can you not say non-essential? Everybody's essential.
And if you have,
Subjective.
Well, we did it last year. What did we do last year?
Same thing.
Exact same thing?
Yes, sir. I made that motion.
There was no exception to the hire?
Not till we got through with the budget.
Okay.
We did it last year also.
Well,
I said all positions till we done the budget.
Could you look that up in the minutes and see what that motion was?
Should be February or January last year.
I hope you don't have to just look under your name.
Just a second.
That'd be taking a few minutes to get it right.
Wow. Oh, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry.
Did you get second?
Now y'all start discussion before we got that.
March of last year. Found it. Pull it up. Mr. Fleener moved to place freeze on hiring any new certified staff for new positions before FY21 budget planning.
What does new position mean?
It was new
Probably
certified
meant all
staff.
positions.
Well, there's a difference between all and new.
Well, probably what I had in my mind, what I said, was probably two different things.
Because we sure did hire a whole lot of teachers last spring without any interruption
We were
whatsoever.
doing the
Well, I
budget.
think we done the budget till first, didn't we?
Yeah, we were doing the budget.
So let's do this. Let's restate that motion, try to get a second.
Get back there, please.
I'd like to make a motion, we put a freeze on all hiring and transfers. Unless it's a necessity, then the director will bring it to the board for approval.
Call meeting.
Call meeting until we get through our budget. FY 21-22.
Do we have a second?
So do I say, I have a necessity, I have an emergency, and just leave it at that? Or do I have to ask you for permission to fill every position that comes open? This is a big deal, folks. You are really hamstringing my office. I mean, you're talking about substitute teachers here.
Have you hired?
We don't have a second.
Oh, sorry.
I'd just like to get a second.
Okay.
My BOE just pulled back up where I had to go out, if you don't mind to restate. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Make a motion
Teacher hiring will begin in earnest in late March. And you're asking me to come to wait 30 days. I've got a great teacher. I want to offer that person a contract, but I got to wait till the board meeting. I call the person, Johnson City's got her. You are really hamstringing the ability of my office to bring in quality people in a timely fashion, to fill the positions that these principals need.
Is there a particular position that's controversial? I don't know, I'm not in the loop.
Now, I would never fill a position that wasn't funded.
How did you do it last year?
When do you
Well, I thought
issue
we were going,
contracts?
Sorry.
When do you issue contracts?
Contracts go out the last week before school's out to the week after school's out.
So you're not doing any contracts in March.
No,
You're
but
making
we
offers.
hire around the calendar.
Well, I could make an exception for teachers, that way any other position we could
Any certified position?
certified, or should I say
Non-certified.
certified and
Classified.
non-certified teachers? That way you can hire what you
I'm
need.
non-certified staff as anybody that's not.
I'm sorry, I'm lost. Do you want to freeze non-certified or certified? Which one you want to freeze?
Neither, not teachers, just give you the option to hire what teachers you need to, but any other position, let's wait until we see what we want to do.
Brad, the term that you use for that is what, classified?
Yeah, how do you,
Okay, if you're not a teacher, you're a classified employee.
Okay.
Anybody with a teaching license is a certified, whether that be a principal, classroom teacher, or super, assistant director.
Jared?
As part of the hiring process, we hire interim teachers year-round. We also have a nursing position that we're getting ready to interview for and try to make a hire for that. And technically, the nurse would be called a classified position. So I just want you guys to be aware of that. So.
Well, now, wait just a minute. I guess got a question. Maybe I'm wrong. I thought we just give a raise to all certified employees.
Okay. Yes, they included nurses in that. Nurses are actually considered certified as far as PCRS goes, retirement. So, because they have a license.
And the state funded those, the state chose to fund those in the 358.
That's why nurses were included in.
Right, but if you say teachers, that's not going to include the nurses. So.
Yes, they certified.
Right.
That's all staff in, right?
What is it you want me to do? Just lay it out. What is it the board wants me to do?
Does he have a second?
No.
I never got a second. I can't get a second.
And I could, if there's an underlying motivation here, I can handle that, but just to say that half of our workforce, you won't let me hire, like a bus driver, as bad as we need them, or for short a nurse or two, and you won't let me hire them, and it's already a funded position?
All I was saying is, what I thought Mr. Masters was wanting was to not to change anything until we go through the budget season. If we had to make changes, we'd make changes. I don't know what Mr. Masters was thinking.
That's basically what I'm.
But that was the reason I was supportive of it, because, I mean, if we cut a position or cut whatever, then it'd be better if it wasn't already filled if we're gonna cut it.
Right.
And that is
I
true.
agree with that, but tell me which one you don't want me to fill. Just
Well,
tell me.
Well, see, here's the thing. I mean, we're gonna have some attrition. Okay, we're gonna have some people that are gonna decide they're not gonna work next year. Do we need to fill those or not? Frankly, you may think that we should, but our new director may think that we shouldn't. And if we've gone ahead and filled it, then we're just kind of stuck. Now, I don't know how you fix that, but I think getting down to the
Yeah, I
nuts and
don't have
bolts deal, that's
anything,
where we are.
no position in particular, but I guess my only thought process was just.
I see what y'all are saying, but you also don't have the new director till July 1st. Right. And our budget's gonna be.
If you wait
Maybe
until
if you
July
could
the
do it by
1st to fill key positions, there won't be anybody left.
So, basically, we need to decide if we're gonna cut some positions or not refill some positions on the budget this year.
Right.
If that's what you're thinking.
Well, that's just one, I mean, they have.
Yeah,
we've talked about that in prior years and
Well, let's
several years
move on,
ago.
because he don't have a second, so let's go on.
Okay, very well. WCEA. It's Ms. France.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you and good evening. Teachers would like to request that you please consider the FFCRA benefits proposals and make your choice retroactive from the beginning of the third quarter, right after Christmas. Did you hear that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so February the 11th, we'll have a call meeting at 4:30. Miss Jennifer, will you be so kind to email them
And the questions and.
on the new director search, and then what else?
FFRCA.
Yeah, whatever Ms. Francis is.
Yeah.
Whatever those initials were, let's see.
FFCRA.
FFCRA on the 11th as well. there anything else was supposed to be on the 11th?
In the Escher?
Yeah, definitely. That was in the motion, I think, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. And then you all have, everybody has a schedule on all the meetings coming up?
I hope so. Can Jennifer just send that out in an
She
email?
did once, I think. You want to update it?
I'll send an update.
She said she'll send an update. All right. All hearts and minds clear. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.